Are you an analysis paralysis? It's a great term that we use all the time, but really it comes down to, are you analyzing things before you're taking action? Well, in today's episode, I'm here with my great friend, Peter Boutros. Hey, Peter, how you doing today?
Morning, Sharif. I'm good. How are you?
All right. I want to dive into this, Peter, because implementation is key to success, right? Everyone spends so much time learning and trying to figure out how to do things, but they're never implementing. So let's tackle that today. What are your thoughts on that, Pete?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. I think a lot of people get stuck, trying to get ready and they just never end up taking any action at all. It's one of those things where you'll never be fully 100% ready, right? We talk about this a lot, and, me and you run into this. It's like, we're always trying to build a plane while we're flying it at the same time, right? I think a lot of people get stuck in that situation, and that's why we want to talk about this a little bit and see and talk about what worked well for us, right? So why don't we dissect that, Sharif? Like, why don't you like maybe share some examples, maybe or suggestions of what worked in the past with you?
Well, I run into people all the time on my team through coaching or just randomly in the market, and everybody's always preparing, right? No one's ever really taking action, right? Everyone is like the saying, ready, aim, fire. Everyone gets ready, everyone's aiming, but everyone gets stuck on the aim portion. When I've heard a coach actually recently mention it should be ready, fire, and then aim. The fact of the matter is, you got to take action. You got to take action to know where you are, to know exactly how everything's functioning around you, and then kind of tweak things. So, what we do is we get ready, we're taking action, and then we're aiming afterwards, right? So, it's the reality of not everything is going to be perfect that when you do things, you try to perfect it along the way. But what happens is you got to take action, figure out what is not right, and then go ahead and try to tweak things to try to make it a little bit better. So I find it all the time. And I'll tell you, when you ask me, what's a good example of that? All the time, people are like, I'm going to post on social media. I'm going to post on social media. And then they dwell about content that they're going to post. They try to perfect the video or they try to tweak the text and they never get it posted. Like that is a perfect example of when people are spending way too much time focusing on trying to perfect something when they should be firing the shots first.
I love that. I know recently we had somebody ask us on the last mastermind that we did, right? And I know you kind of got worked up with this because it was one of those things where they're asking, what is the best lead source, right? Like, what can I
No, you
get, right?
specifically said if I had
Yeah,
$1,000, what lead source should I put my money into?
right.
And how did that go, Pete?
I could already see like the flames coming out of your forehead.
Yeah. I had smoke coming out of my ears, out of my nose. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Are you
Yeah.
even ready?
I know. So like we can't actually, like how start going and or taking action or firing if we don't have something at least the basics in place first, right? So there's obviously two sides to this. Like you can't go ahead and spend thousands of dollars to go buy the best camera so you can start doing video or social media content or spend all this money on expensive lead sources if you don't even have a CRM set up yet properly. But you want to take actions and smart ways, right? But also don't spend too much time trying to perfect every system out there because it's never going to be perfect, right?
Perfection is really just a theory.
Yeah.
You never really find perfection. You're always working towards it. And the fact is, you could be stuck in, the same situation, just spinning your wheels, trying to find the perfect, call, the perfect script, the perfect post, the perfect systems. It's never going to be perfect. You got to take action and tweak along the way. That's really what it comes down to. And going back to that story, I do agree with you. And that was something that, they wanted to take action prior to being even ready, right? So they weren't ready. They weren't even ready to aim. They didn't have anything in place. And that's something that I really want to talk about. It's like, I made that mistake years ago. I started dumping money into lead sources like Zillow without having a CRM system. So I wasn't ready. but at least we took the action, right? And tweaked along the way. So we did take the action. We did go into Zillow, and after that, finally implemented, the actual CRM system, which should have been done prior. But then we started going into tweaking automations for those lead sources as well. So you can't get too hung up on just what the results are going to be, or what the next steps are going to be. You got to actually take action with it and then let it all fall into place afterwards.
That. And just, by coincidence, I actually started reading this book last week, and it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. And it just talks about when you want to think slower or maybe take a little bit longer to think about things before you take action on it. And also when you need to think fast, right? There's a lot of, there are people that will take a little bit longer to think or take action. They want to make sure that all their ducks lined up in a row. When it comes to maybe making business decisions, or maybe it's costing a little bit more money, and then there are times where you need to think a little bit slower, right? When it's like more of an emotional type of trigger that will cause you to say something that you may regret later, right? And I think this is a really good segue to go and talk about when should we go ahead and take action really quickly, or when should we take a little bit more time to respond to certain scenarios, right? For example, we have somebody come, a seller or an agent, right? Maybe not too happy with the situation that's going on. Like, is this something that you want to respond to right away if somebody's like not is pissed off, or maybe do you want to take a little bit of time so you can cool down if you're the type of person that will automatically get defensive or want to definitely put them in their place? Is that going to really get you where you want to go, or was that going to get the point across, right? So when do you think, Sharif, and there's no right or wrong answer, right? I mean, it could be something that we want to work on. And like, what do you find works best? And when do you just take time to think about things to make a decision? Or when do you go take action and implement right away?
Yeah, I mean, when it's big business decisions that are affecting other people and have some type of monetary cost to it, I'm definitely thinking a little bit longer. But a good situation or a good example that, taking action right away is what we talk about, we preach about all the time, speed to lead, right? Uh, when a lead hits your database, when you get that lead's information, you should be jumping on it. Stop thinking about what you should be saying. Stop thinking about what the right situation should be for this type of lead. Call the damn lead, right? And call it as quickly as possible. And that is something that you should be doing without even thinking about it. You should be doing it. But if you're thinking about buying like a lead source, you might want to do a little research into it, put a little thought into it, try to talk to other people that possibly have been using it. Um, but if you get a lead off that source, you should be calling them right away. So that's, example of like, a similar situation, put two different reasoning outcomes to, how you should be dealing with those situations.
I like that a lot. And in the same scenario too, a lot of times when we run into conflict, I believe that we should run towards conflict and try to do it quickly, right? And not take a while, especially if it is something that could hurt our business, or could be with another maybe teammate that, before you keep, letting them do like that same mistake over and over again, you may want to correct that or let them know right away too. At the same time, there are situations where we may want to take a couple of hours before we call that person back, especially if they're very angry, because you want to give them some time to cool down, right? And do you find that works well for you, Sharif, too?
But yeah, I mean, I used to be the person that would call right away and, we'd both be in a heated, mood and the outcomes were never great. I found that I've gave it a little time for not only myself, but also the other party to calm down a little bit, think about the actual issues at hand. We can come up with something, that's actually creative for a solution rather than trying to use anger to fuel the actual solution itself. So I do that all the time. And it's not because I'm trying to ignore people, it's because I understand human nature. Right. We explode. We're very, impulsive as well. And to calm that down and to actually take action later could be more positive for the issue itself. So I do that with clients that are upset. I do that with teammates that are also upset, or even anyone I encounter, even family members, right? It's really there's a lot to be said in silence, right? There's a lot to be said in what you think about in order to prepare for that conversation later. That is a good scenario where you should take a step back, breathe, and then react, right? Rather than, like we just used that example of someone, a new lead comes in, you're calling right away. This is a whole different scenario. You need a little time as a little bit of a buffer to make sure your actions are going to be correct.
That's so true. And I think also it comes down to, if it's more on the logical type of thinking from our brain, or if it's more of the emotional side of it, right? When it comes to the emotional side of it, I believe that we definitely have to be a little bit more calmer, control a little bit, take a little bit more time to go ahead and do that. But it's more of the logical type of brain where it's like, okay, well, if this is, it's cost versus reward, right? Like, how much is this going to cost me? And also, if this doesn't work out, is is the cost of doing this and not working out, is it still greater than making that mistake and see if this is something that I can learn from it too? Because there's obviously a cost to everything that we do. So we have to also make sure that we make that decision properly. But it's so true. Like when it comes to business decision making, or just like I would say like the process of doing business, right? Like there's nothing that you have to think about when you have a new lead that comes in. You have to talk to them right away. If they call you, and you shouldn't take weeks to respond back to them, or their text message, right? You have to get back to them right away. To me, like if you take that long, it's just that you either forgot, or you're just like too busy for to even talk to them, and they're gonna think the same way. They're never gonna think that you're just, they're gonna think you're too busy for them at the end of the day. So we definitely got to make sure that we, time our action properly too. And in most cases in business, we have to take quick action.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was always taught, a good leader makes decisions quickly, but changes their mind slowly. So really, it should be about, making those decisions. Of course, some decisions will take longer than others, but you should make them as quickly as possible. And once you make that decision, you shouldn't be changing things quickly after that.
Yeah.
You gotta give it time to figure out what are the results, what are the issues, how can we work through those issues? Are there a way to work through the issues before changing anything about that decision? And that's where I think a lot of people get hung up. They start, making changes and changes and changes. I learned this from IT. Like you can't make a change on a computer and then not wait and then see if that fixed a change. When you start to put different solutions in place, then you don't know which solution worked and which solution's not working. So you really got to make decisions quickly, but change your mind slowly. And that's a key element in actual leadership and also when working any type of business. It's really something that you really should focus on.
No, that's so true. And same goes for lead sources, right? A lot of times people will buy a lead source and they'll just give it maybe 30 days, or even when they follow up with clients, right? They'll call them a couple of times and then they'll say, oh, this lead is not good. And this lead source is not good. And then when you go back and see how many times did they actually call, then it's like one or two times, and then they stop calling and they say that this is not a good lead. Or if it's the same thing for the lead source, right? Like we know that, the life cycle of a lead, and most leads are 6 to 12 months, even if it's a portal lead, right? Like Zillow lead. It's 6 to 12 months on average before they start transacting. So a lot of people will make that mistake where, they'll try to change lead sources really quickly, and then they jump from lead source to lead source. And at that point, they're just wasting money because they didn't really have the nurture plan in place. They're not calling them enough, or they didn't give it enough time to see if this is something that's going to work out or not. It's at the end of the day, that's why it's an investment, right? Like it's an investment, and you have to really, see if it works. Like we have a friend that was talking to us about SEO the other day, and he's been investing in SEO for 3 years, 3 years before he ended up seeing any sort of result, right? But now he started getting some type of result. And, not too many people are going to invest that much money. And this is a lot of money into SEO before they wait and see the result. Like, you definitely have to obviously have that should be like a portion of your money that you're willing to lose, and knowing that it may work or may not work.
Yeah, everything is going to be an investment, right? It's investment of time or money. And you got to give enough time for investments to actually give you the results. I can promise you that. Even like even with purchasing a home, you can't have that instant gratification that you're going to make double the money the day after purchasing, right? You got to give it time. You got to give it time to see if your investment is actually going to pay off. And I see it all the time too. Hell, I do it sometimes. I get scared of lead sources, especially the ones that are very expensive, if you get one bum lead after another. But the fact is, this is a game of numbers, right? It's a game of also time. You got to let it marinate a little bit. You got to wait and see, are you actually doing it correctly? I mean, different lead sources could require different ways of actually speaking to people or tackling them in order for you to be successful. And sometimes it takes time with that, but it's about getting ready, taking action, and then tweaking later, right? And just giving enough time for that process.
No, for sure. For sure. It's one of those things where you gotta be okay, and it's a business decision, and not every lead source worked well for us. Like, there was a lot of lead sources that were a waste of money and it never did anything, and some leads that worked out well. But it's one of those things where you have to try in order for you to figure out, right? And that's why it's hard to be, in our position sometimes, because a lot of the things that people don't see is that how much money we lost on figuring out what works before we actually got some stuff that actually started working. And not most people don't really see it that way, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And it takes a little time. It takes a little time to figure it out, but you got to take the action though. You can't spend so much time just thinking about it, then you never take action. Then nothing gets done. I mean, every mastermind that we go to, there's always a statistic that always pops up, and it's 85%, right? What does that 85% represent, Peter?
85% of the I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well, the masterminds, like if 85% of the people that you'll find in the mastermind will not implement at all,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
right? You'll only get 15% of the people who actually will take action, will take
Yes.
steps. That's not
100%.
a good statistic, right? That's in a
Yeah.
statistic you don't want to be in the 85. You
Yeah.
gotta be in that top 15% that's actually implementing, and it's a struggle that most people have is they just get into, like, a paralysis stage from just learning, and they don't take the action, so don't be that 85%.
Yeah. You go to these masterminds or watch these trainings or videos, more of like almost entertainment more than anything, and that's what happens because, you don't do anything with it, and it's a lot of times it's like, it's not that you need to go to the next mastermind or go to the next event to make sure that your business completely changes around. It's like, what are you gonna do after the event? A lot of times we go to events that they pretty much say the same thing over and over again, and it's already stuff that we know, right? But it's like, what is this one small thing that we can take away that we can implement right away, even though we've heard from it, but it could be just somebody that said it just differently and it clicked completely different. That made us think of it a completely different way. And that's what's really important, right? It's not like you have to go to thousands of masterminds and events so you can start taking action. It's like, how quickly can you take action that doesn't make sense? And just going back to what you said before about lead sources and all these things, you know, the only way that you're going to figure out what's working or what's not is by really tracking, right? And then I think this is also something that we should talk about. Like, how do people make that decision to figure out what works and what doesn't before they change their mind after they take that action or implement something?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta definitely study it. You gotta report back, and you gotta have some type of statistics of what's happening, right? I mean, how do you make an educational decision without really looking at the results or looking about everything that happened from that point of implementation till now? And it's important to keep track. Like we spend a lot of time looking at stats, looking at like, call volume, looking at different, key points that are going to give us indications of things that we need to change. And without that, you're not able to tweak it and make it better. You're just running, on the same type of hamster wheel over and over again, and there's no progress happening. So it's important to make sure that you have some type of reporting system on, the actual things that you're actually focusing on to change. Otherwise, you'll just be changing haphazardly for no apparent reason, and you don't know if it's going to get better or worse because you have no baseline for that. So you got to make sure that you have the actual stats, the actual data, and study that in order to make an educated decision later.
Yeah, there's so many things we can track. Like we talk about this back and forth where, okay, this lead source, all of a sudden our phone numbers are not being picked up, right? Like it took me a couple of months to figure out that our numbers are getting labeled as spam. So we had to subscribe to a different system to kind of get us away from that because once you reach a certain amount of calls a day, then you get labeled as spam. And then, figuring out, okay, we were getting more cancellations or reschedules from when we get appointments on the calendar more than 3 days out. So, and looking at those, right? And then, like, okay, what closes, what doesn't close? These are all things that we look at. And okay, this lead source gives us X amount percent ROI on the money that we invest. This doesn't. So there's just so many numbers that we can track, and we have to look at everything because that's what a business is, right? Like, if you don't know what your numbers are, how can you make any sorts of improvements, like you said? There's no way that we can figure out what's working or not without really tracking these.
Definitely. So, the key, takeaway from this is, you really got to take action. You got to keep, data after taking action so you understand where you are, right? So you understand what needs to be changed. But the key thing is to take that action because without taking that action, you can't get that data and you won't know what needs to be changed. Or if you don't take that action, there's no progress that's going to be made. I mean, progress comes from taking action. It doesn't come from studying what you need to do. It comes from actually moving towards that goal that you have. So it's really key to actually be ready for it, take action, then aim later. That's really what it comes down to.
I love it. And in most cases, guys, you have to take action really quickly and then fix later and make changes later, but after some time. Don't change everything every week or two because you're never going to see progress from.
You want it all. You want it
Yeah,
all. So I hope that helps everybody today. Take action. Make sure that you're taking action. Don't be that person that's stuck in analysis paralysis. I say it all the time. Don't paralyze yourself. You're just going to sit there and you're going to try to study everything that you want to study, but you're not taking action on it, so you're not doing anything for the greater good of the mission. So just keep that in mind. So I hope everybody enjoyed that.
thank you guys. And if you like this content, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Make sure that you visit our Facebook group and share it with anybody that you would think that they would find value from it. See you guys soon.
Bye guys.
Bye.